Sam Howell has thrown 6 straight interceptions in games he has started, and Dalton Schultz needs 6 catches to trigger a $250,000 contract incentive. Welcome to Prop It Up. I'm Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. We're going to be going over all the games this week, and it's some difficult games. We've got playoff scenarios, we've got contract incentives, and we're going to break down each and every game and see where we can find some value. Joining me, as always, my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. And we can start with the contract incentives because there's just not a lot of props out. Some games have no props out. So, Andrew, it's that time of year, contract incentives. My opinion is that they've jumped the shark mostly. Like last year, nobody really noticed. And this week, I've been getting tons of messages, and it's all over social media. There's tons of articles. And guess what? If you guys know about it, the books know about it. So my big message is tread carefully with these. These are all not locks. It used to be easy pickings with some of these. So, Andrew, let's start with some incentives. There's a ton of them. I actually feel like this is kind of a weak year. There's only a few guys that have some legitimate shots to get there. So when we look at some of these incentives, what are some that jumped out to you? And we can go back and forth and discuss these.
Yeah, so I mean, good to be here with you as always, Andy. You know, you talk about these incentives, and I think people see that and they're just like, okay, he has to do this, so he's going to. It's like we always say at the end of the year, come playoff time across every sport, a team might have to win a game to make the playoffs, but they're in that position for a reason because they didn't do it before. They didn't get enough yards. They didn't get enough, beforehand. So just because they have to do this in the last game does not mean they will. And I would say that there's some that are more controllable than others, like whether it be like attempts or catches or things like that. Everyone knows about that Gronkowski and Brady clip. Hey, Tom, I need one more catch. Like, not everything can be like that one. That's for sure. But, scrolling through the list, like, Andy, here's a guy that I've kind of been a little bit hard on this year. Alexander Madison needs 125 yards for a $650,000 bonus. No, thank you. Like, I'm going under on his yards in general. So I don't think the guy's getting 125 rushing yards on the day. I think it's kind of interesting to look, Jordan Love makes the playoffs. He gets a $500,000 bonus. But do you think he cares about that money right now, or he just wants to make the playoffs? I don't think he's sitting at home thinking, man, that 500,000 will be so awesome if we make the playoffs. He just wants to make the playoffs, So different things like that I thought were interesting. Two that I like, actually. I like Devin Singletary over on his rushing yards. He needs 165 yards for 125,000. He's not going to get 165 yards, okay? I don't think he's going to hit that milestone, but I think he's going to get a lot of reps, a lot of touches, and I like his matchup. I think he's been really getting a lot of attention over the past several weeks, and I think he's worth it for people's, fantasy or whatever they're playing, daily fantasy lineups and things like that. Because even though I don't think some guys are going to get their milestones, there is that incentive for us to kind of be looking towards them. And then the last one was, did you see the tweet? I'll throw it back to you in a sec. Did you see the tweet for Odell Beckham? He said, don't take my parlays, guys. Like, I love when players talk about betting. It's like, all right, bro, I won't. I'll probably bet your unders because like, who knows what's even going to happen, but his, of course, is 5 catches for $250,000, touchdowns and all that stuff. There's several more, but which one stuck out to you?
Well, the Devin Singletary one, and I will lump Dalton Schultz in there because he needs 6 catches. That is a playoff game. That is both teams playing really hard. That's not. I don't see a situation unless it's some kind of blowout towards the end where they're going to force feed Dalton Schultz 6 catches. They're trying to win the game, and maybe they need Dalton Schultz to block. I don't know. But he needs 6 catches for the contract incentive, and his line is 4.5 catches at even money. So, you could get middled, maybe in a good way if you take the over and, he gets to 5. You hit that. But this is a Texans team that's not going to be screwing around with it unless they're up like 28-10, in the fourth quarter, and he needs 1 catch. So, you got to be really careful with that. And I'm with you on Devin Singletary. Like, he needs 165 total yards, but I'm with you. The rushing yards is probably the way to go. This is a Colts rush defense that's terrible, and Singletary has been fantastic, especially when he gets over the double-digit carry mark. So, I'm with you on Odell Beckham. If you listen to that speech in the locker room, he is so all in on this team winning a Super Bowl. It was just very obvious that his incentives kind of don't matter. There's a couple of defensive ones that I do think are within reach. So Chris Jones of the Chiefs, this is the big one. If he gets, I believe it's half a sack, he gets a $1.25 million incentive. That's no joke. That one absolutely could happen. He's a wrecker. I could absolutely see the defense trying to get some schemes to get him there. Jadeveon Clowney needs half a sack to get to 750,000. That's an interesting one because teams like the Ravens, they've announced they're sitting Lamar. They're sitting other guys. They have a bunch of guys listed as questionable. These guys aren't playing. But I could absolutely see Jadeveon Clowney going out there for the first series and, give it a shot. Like, we're going to blitz everybody on your side so we can eat up all of the offensive linemen. You get a free reign, tip the other quarterback $100,000 if you get there, and we'll call it a day. So
I like that one better than the
Levante
Chris Jones one, Andy. I think the Clowney one's better than the Chris Jones one.
Yeah, there's another defensive one. Levante David, he needs a sack. It's 150,000, and he faces the Panthers. So you gotta. That's a playoff game for the Buccaneers. They need to win. They need to win that thing. So DeAndre Hopkins is interesting. 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 39 yards. He gets 250,000 on each prop. He faces the Jaguars. Now, Will Levis is the quarterback. Will Levis has been spotty at best. And then Baker Mayfield, he gets bonuses on if he finishes in the top 10 of a bunch of passing categories, but he's inside the top 10 on most of them. So I don't see any value on some of those. So, I got to be honest. I don't think I'm going to have any of these props inside or for client plays because I don't see any jumping out where they're like slam dunk home run. Oh yeah, they're certainly going to get there. And if I do, it's probably the defensive ones.
Yeah, I mean, and those defensive ones, it's like, I'm not saying getting 1 sack or a half sack is easy, but like you said, especially if it's a matchup that isn't really needed for you to crack the playoffs, you're going out there with one goal and one goal only. And that's just to get in and get out of the game. And Teddy said it best, actually, on WagerTalk today. These coaches, players, quarterbacks, everybody, they almost like team up together to get the owner's money. They're like, okay, this is what you need. All right, that's what you need, right? Okay. Like I'm not saying that they're all going to hit, but certain ones that are more controllable. Darius Slayton needs 1 catch for $2.5 million. Like, there's some people that just need, you mentioned Dalton Schultz. Like, there's some guys that I think it's super attainable for, but like, I almost find it funny when you see those articles written about like a guy like Alexander Madison. It's like, all right, like if he gets 126 rushing yards, like he deserves more money than he's getting because that's not going to happen. But some of the smaller ones are interested. I like the Clowney one quite a bit. The Chris Jones one, we'll see. I think it depends how much he'll be in the game, really. But I'm with you on the defensive props for sure. Some of these ones that are so high, I would recommend for people, even if you don't think they're gonna because what I will preface is everyone's got to relax with the milestone props. You hear a lot about that.
Absolutely.
People do that a lot on Sunday.
God.
Like,
yes, for sure.
Like, because I mentioned some of these guys, like we were talking about Singletary, right? He might not get that incentive. He may still have a good game. And a lot of people are going to be betting him to go over his incentive and not just to have a good day. And I'll tell you what, his actual rushing prop is a hell of a lot lower than the number he needs to make some money. So beware. And Andy, you always say it's not about the same game parlays or the parlay. Is what you parlay. Isn't that your expression? So everybody out there, be careful with these incentive props.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll start breaking down these games and just be honest, guys, there's going to be games that we get to that there's just no props out there for. So it's a really, really good week to be very careful. And remember, you only need one or two plays to turn a profit. So, Andrew, we've got a football pack up. We got 2 plays in it, but we got a 5% and a 4% because there's a couple spots that are just really, really great. And then most of the other games, there's just not a whole lot of value. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Saturday games. Andrew, you've got the Steelers at the Ravens. Steelers are going to be much more motivated in this one. Ravens are already sitting Lamar Jackson, and in my opinion, they're going to be sitting a lot more guys. They just listed a bunch of guys as questionable. To me, that's wink, wink, questionable. What did you find, Steelers and Ravens? Are there any props here that we can take advantage of?
I will say from a side perspective, this is one of those games to be careful with because the Ravens are a good team. They're a good team because of, the players they have, but also I think good teams have depth. That's why they do well in the preseason. So I wouldn't say it just be in a rush to go ahead and fade some of these teams just because they're sitting players. But guys, one that really stuck out to me, George Pickens over 51.5 receiving, coming off a huge day, 7 catches for 131 yards, back-to-back performances for him reaching the 100-yard mark. I think it's a pretty good matchup against a bunch of backups. That's the thing. The last time that he played the Ravens, Humphrey was out there. The great defensive core that Baltimore has was out there in that lineup, and he still had a big game. And now with the backups in, people always talk about backups. They just talk about offense backups, right? But defensive backups are going to be there. Back-to-back 100-yard performances. I really do think that Pickens will have a good one over 51.5. I think is a great play. And Andy here, I love betting on guys that I've talked smack about this season. And Najee Harris, he's actually getting a lot of touches, man. He's healthy. He's I've seen quotes saying he's good to go. He will play this weekend. I'm looking. I don't see a prop for this, so I have to be clear. I don't see a number here. I want to look at his over on carries if it's a respectable number. He has double-digit carries in 10 straight games. He's coming off a game where he had 27 carries. I mean, this is a guy that you got to have a big circle around on your list. And I'm not even joking when I say this, that just when you like him in a certain week, you bet his attempts, not his yards. He might stack up so many carries, and the yards might, the yards he has for the attempts he has will make your jaw drop. So you might as well just take the attempts. If you think he's going to have a good game, look at the attempts, but look, I've just focused on 2 Steelers players, Najee with the carries and Pickens. I just think that number is pretty light there, Andy, and he did well against the starting defense for the Ravens earlier in the season. Now he's getting the backups here at 51.5. So those are just the 2 plays I like in this one. Muted, I think, Andy.
Yeah, I like the Steelers in this one. I think by halftime you could just be looking at all the backups of the Ravens versus the Steelers team that's trying their best to win. We talked about Devin Singletary. I'll talk about the Texans and the Colts. And yeah, this is a good one. I mean, this line opened at 61.5. Some books it's all the way up to 64.5. So if you're going to jump on it now. I'm going to focus on the rushing instead of the rushing and receiving. So let's first off take a look at the Colts defense. So take out that game that Mitch Trubisky started because I'm pretty sure he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So you take out that game, the Colts have allowed 8 running backs to go over this total in their last 6 games. They're averaging 1.2 running backs per game going over 61.5. And Singletary is getting the lion's share of the carries. They're giving up 128 yards rushing per game this season. And the last 5 games that Singletary has gotten double-digit carries, he's gone over this total. If he does not get injured, he is absolutely getting double-digit carries. This is going to be a close game. I don't see a game script in which Devin Singletary is out of the picture. So I think this is a great one. Again, I would stay away from the rushing and receiving. That's a contract incentive of his, but just think of the game script, guys. The Texans need to win outright. Colts need to win outright. They're not going to worry about incentives in this one. So I do like Devin Singletary over the rushing. Noah Brown looks like he's going to be out. So if you're looking at Texans wide receivers, Nico Collins, man, is it a big number at 74.5. We did see Robert Woods, the corpse of Robert Woods, come out from the grave and have a 58-yard game last week. So maybe if they put out Robert Woods props, I mean, listen, you don't want to be in a position where you're hoping Robert Woods has a good game, but with Noah Brown out, he could. So I would look at him. And we've talked about Dalton Schultz and his receptions. His 43 and a half yards is a little bit interesting. This is a Colts team that gets carved up on the ground and in the air. So if Noah Brown's out, they're going to be looking to pass it otherwhere. So you might look at Dalton Schultz, but by far Devin Singletary is the best look in this game for props. I could not really find much with the Colts. Part of the reason is because the Texans are a really good rush defense, not so much passing. But at the same time, I just can't get there with this Colts passing team. I guess you could look at Michael Pittman if you just say this is a do or die situation for the Colts. Who are they going to go to? It's probably going to be Michael Pittman, but his number 78 and a half, and his receptions is 6.5, and it's minus 150. So you need a guy. You need a guy to get to 7 receptions at minus 150 with Gardner Minshew throwing in the ball. Way too expensive for me. So they've priced me out of the market there. So I'll just stick with Singletary in this one. Guys, if you're enjoying the gambling content, please hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Tell us what your best bet is in the comment section. Crazy wonky week here for props. So let us know what you got. See if you got any hidden gems. Leave it to us in the comment section and go ahead and hit the like button. Andrew, let's move to Sunday and let's take a look at the Browns and the Bengals. Joe Flacco has been I get sentimental and teary-eyed thinking about Joe Flacco and just all those cashes over his attempts, over his passing yards. What'd you find in Browns and the Bengals?
Andy, I found a lot of quotes saying this is going to be a crappy game. Pretty much. There's going to be backups in. There's going to be, my favorite to me is when a coach pretty much describes Stefanski described Driscoll as a system guy that knows how to manage a game. Like, to me, when you look at the Browns here, they're secured, they're safe in their spot. Flacco, he's not even going anywhere near a field probably in this game, and that's for good reason. I like the team total under, guys, this week, under 18.5 for 15.5 for the Cleveland Browns. Looking at what they've done recently, you have to be impressed by it. Led by Joe Flacco. We talked about it multiple weeks in a row here on the show that we were shocked at what we were seeing from him. His passing yards were going over every week. His attempts were going over every week. And he had, his players making plays for him. Nobody thought without Nick Chubb, this team would be putting up some of the points that they are. But when I'm seeing quotes out of this team right now, everything I'm seeing from the coaching staff, from the players, and the quarterback situation here for the Browns this week is looking rough. And when you have your own coach saying, yeah, we got a system guy behind center, we got a real good game manager helping us out. When I look at that, the sign for me is get out of this game healthy, run the ball probably quite a bit and take things quite easy. I don't really expect many deep shots. I don't expect to see the offense we've seen from the Cleveland Browns over the last few weeks. So team total under for the Cleveland Browns is what I have my eye on in this one.
Yeah, I agree completely. This is one of the games that just falls under the the S shows for this week. We got the Vikings and the Lions here. So what we're looking at here is the Lions do have an outside shot to move from the 3 seed to the 2 seed. They would need to win, and then they would need miracles, which is I believe they would need the Cowboys to lose at Washington, and they need something else. But the whole point is that they play first, and the two things that they need to have happen are in the 4:30 time slot. So I think we're going to get the full Lions effort. So I wouldn't be worried about taking Lions props in this game as soon as they come out. Problem is there's just not a whole lot of them. I will say, Andrew, I like Nick Mullins over 265.5 passing. Don't forget, some of these quarterbacks, it may seem like, oh, it's a backup and the game doesn't mean much. These guys are auditioning. These are roster spots that these guys are trying out for. It could be for their current team. It could be for another team. But, sometimes these are the most motivated guys in the league. Last week, backups trying to show off. So I like Nick Mullins here. In his 2 starts this season, this is crazy. 411 yards and 303 yards for Nick Mullins in his 2 starts. They tried to They tried to get away from him, and that was a disaster last game. And so he comes in at halftime, has a good second half. But this is a Detroit team that has allowed 300 plus yards per game the last 3 games. Worst in the league. This is a defense that is absolutely getting carved up. So I think the Vikings probably want to show off. I'm with you that the Alexander Madison is that was pretty funny. I'm going to take the under that he doesn't get that contract instead of there. So I do like Mullins though. I think that's the best one in this game. So that's what I'll ride with in this one. Andrew, go ahead and tell everyone what you have up, where we can find you at. We're going to move to Jaguars and Titans. I know it's a great weekend of NHL games. You've been just crushing the team totals, and I love that you've been doing that in NHL. So tell everyone what you have up for this weekend and where we can find you at.
Yeah, wt.buzz/am, of course, wagertalk.com, as well as yourself there. And one side play in the NFL and then just a prop pack. And I think if there's ever a time to get the prop pack and not buy one play, it's probably this weekend. As information becomes available, the more I look into things, I'll be adding to my plays. I'll be adding to those packages. So certainly worthy of looking at it. And you can make money this week in the NFL, guys. You got to just pick your spots and be super selective. As people will tell today, I certainly am being on some of these games, just having, maybe one or two opinions, if that. And the NHL, like you mentioned, Andy, still rocking with those team totals. Last night was kind of annoying, I'll say, and full transparency. Overall, with all my plays, including free plays, I went 4-1 in the NHL. The one loss was the 5. And those are tough because a lot of people just love the 5%, right? And it was a team total over 3.5. They had 2 goals after the first, but I'm seeing the board really well right now. And you mentioned those team totals. I have team totals up in the NFL that I'm looking at, and people call those props. You can call it a total, a prop, whatever it might be, but it's so nice to just focus in on one team. And there's no better feeling when the team that you bet on their team total goes over their team total, but they lose the game. And that happened to me last night, actually, in hockey. And I love it. It's like, yeah, you lost 5-4, but you got me 4. Same thing in the NFL. If they lose, by a field goal, but they went over their team total, perfectly fine with me. So looking forward to a great weekend. And I have a promo code I'll be giving out later on in the show.
Cool. I don't know. Jaguars and Titans. This game means a lot more for the Jags than it does the Titans. Are there any props that you were able to find in this one?
Well, I mean, like I said, we've talked about you don't want to base everything around the incentives, but I don't even think this is one that's just strictly incentive. DeAndre Hopkins needs 7 receptions for $250,000, 49 receiving yards for $1 million. I feel like that's attainable. I feel like, what he's had to deal with for Tannehill and Levis, like someone give this guy a trophy, like it's last week, he caught catches from both quarterbacks. And no matter who's been out there, he's been getting targets. He's pretty much the guy on this team that's reliable. I mean, let's look at some of the numbers here for the targets. We got 7, 9, 12, 12, 11. He's had games where he's gotten up there pretty high. And even in the games where he's had just 4 or 5 targets, he's still been able to put up some pretty good numbers coming off a 72-yard performance. So I will be looking towards him. But overall, as I mentioned to you, Andy, it's team totals week for me, whether it's, a team like Jacksonville, or whether it's a team like Tennessee that you can focus on that you just don't really expect much. I'm looking at the Titans team total under 17.5. I know that this is a Jacksonville team that overall has actually been okay against the pass, but not so good against the rush. Pretty good against the rush, but not so good against the pass. But the good news is for the Jags, they don't really have good quarterbacks throwing the ball. Levis is injured. I don't really trust Tannehill anymore. And the Titans have scored 17 points or fewer 11 times on the year. So this, to me, in a game that is quite meaningless. Besides the Hopkins prop, I don't like much, but I don't think they explode offensively. I don't really think we see much out of the Titans. So I'll look towards their team total under.
I like that one. I'm going to take a look at the Jets and Patriots here. There aren't really any props out here. I will just say I don't see where the points come from for the Jets, so I might look at a team total under. And for the Patriots, I actually kind of like the team total over. This is a Jets defense that you can score on. You can definitely run on them. And if anybody has a little bit more motivation, it might be the Patriots. If this is Belichick's last game, you're certainly not going to want to, go out a loss. But no player props, so no opinion on that. And even though I just talked about team totals, I can't say that these are plays that are going to make my card. So I will graciously pass on the Jets and Patriots. Boy, Jets and Patriots, two of the teams you could circle as like two of the most nightmare seasons for for this season, and they get to wallow in their own misery there at the end of the season. Falcons at the Saints. This is an important game for the division. What did you look at, and what did you find for props in this one?
So, Andy, overall, I just want to keep betting on Drake London. I look at some of the numbers for him. I look at how consistent he's really been. 10 targets last week. We saw a few weeks ago he had 11. He's someone that's consistently being impactful for his team. And I think that in this game in general, the Saints, I believe, will kind of try and shut down that running game for the Falcons. But London's going to be able to beat some of the defenders there for the Saints. And you look at the Saints, I feel like, to me, I think overall their defense is overrated. And some people can throw some stats in my face and say they're a pretty good defensive team. But when they face teams with multiple options, and hold your breath, I actually do think the Falcons have quite a few options. They don't do well defensively. And Drake London, to me, has been someone that's kind of like, I think if he played on a more elite team, if he played on a team that was covered a lot more in the media, he would get more credit. And like I mentioned, you look at some of the games against good teams that he's played or playoff bound teams, that's when he's actually performed. The funny thing is, in games that didn't seem that important, or games that were not against playoff teams, or in order to put yourself in a good position, he hasn't performed very well. So that's the only play I've locked in so far is Drake London. I'm looking at his receiving yards, potential to even look at longest reception, because in games where he doesn't even get that many targets, he's still good for one or two long ones. But this is definitely an interesting one here for the Saints. I might look at their run game. They've kind of, at the start of the year, I was looking all over the pass attempts, pass completions, because they're passing, like, they pretty much weren't passing the ball longer than 5 yards anyway. But since then, they actually have started to actually run the ball and not just look deep whatsoever. So maybe some running props there. But the only one that really stuck out to me was Drake London in this one. And, I've actually had a good read on this Falcons team this year. So I'm just going to stick with him for this game.
You might be the only person in America that's had a good read on the Falcons. I find them incredibly difficult. So just like, Bijan Robinson, he's a world beater next week. 2 touches. Oh, thanks a lot.
Actually, no, we got to shout out Tyler Algier. Me and you have had a good. You started.
We love Tyler Algier.
You started it. I jumped in a little bit late, but he's been good for us.
He's great. I love Tyler Algier. My next game, Buccaneers at Panthers. No props out on this one. Obviously, it means a lot for the Buccaneers. Who knows what the lineups are going to be? If anything, you're doing a team total on the Buccaneers over. But again, this one's not going to make my card. So this is a quick pass for me on this one. Bears at your Packers, Andrew. This one could be an interesting game. We got the Bears with the number 1 pick, but what do they want to do with their players? You got the Packers and all their Packerness, I guess is what we say with that one. Got to say, Aaron Jones actually is looking really good now that he's healthy. Did you find any props, and can we do anything with this game?
I'm so excited for this game. I'm extremely excited for this one here. I want to look towards the under on. I mentioned this last week, and I believe it actually lost. But I want to go back to looking at the under on Jordan Love rushing attempts. Since there's multiple guys now in the running back room, especially having Aaron Jones back, and just in this matchup here against the Bears, and they have so many options to throw to as well. I just feel like if it's gonna be a run, it's gonna be a design run play. I don't see Jordan Love, even though it's a big game, leaving the pocket too much and making plays on his feet. So looking towards some unders there, and kind of a unique one. I know that you were the one that actually first got me looking at running props for quarterbacks, but you used to talk about Tom Brady. This is a bit different for a younger guy with Jordan Love, but I just don't see him really running the ball very much. I have to mention Reed. Look, some people can say, well, is this really a buy time based on what he's done recently? I think it might be. I mean, 89 yards last week, 52 the week before. He's clearly becoming a favorite target and someone that's kind of kind of sliding under the radar still, I believe. I talk about it every week, but I think the best part about this Packers team is that there's multiple weapons and they're young. You know, you look at Dobbs, you look at Christian Watson, and then you throw in Reed and Kraft had a couple good games a few weeks ago. This to me is a deep team and there's a bright future for them. And overall, going back to Jordan Love, I actually want to look towards the under on his passing touchdowns. I think that when they're at the goal line, they're going to be safe. They're going to run the ball. I could see them handing the ball off to Aaron Jones a few times. I'll probably have an Aaron Jones anytime touchdown ticket in my back pocket. And we talked about this earlier in the year. Why shouldn't we look at DJ Moore reception props, Andy? I mean, is he someone that we should avoid? It's kind of like the Adam Thielen thing. Earlier in the year, he was if the Panthers threw the ball, Thielen was getting it. Same thing for this Bears team. He's been heavily involved. So just a couple that I'm looking at. And the funny thing is for him, he's actually kind of fallen off a little bit. But I think in this game in particular, he'll perform at a pretty high level. And I actually think, and people can rip me in the comments all they want, I think this game is actually lopsided. I think I've heard the sharps and the wise guys and all this stuff are playing the Bears. The Packers might win the game, but they don't need to win by more than 3. I think these are two separate teams right now. I've seen the Bears put up points against teams that aren't very good. The Packers are coming into form. I might actually look at this Bears team total under as well, but you can call me a fan, Andy, but I think this is actually going to be a good game for some of these Packers players, and I think Reed continues to play really well.
Love it. I cannot pass on this next game quick enough. Broncos at Raiders. Congratulations if you can predict this game, because I cannot. Yeah, I guess the only things you're looking at is Aiden O'Connell's trying to show off. Jared Stidham is trying to show off. It wouldn't surprise me if both these coaches let their quarterbacks air it out here. I do believe that Pierce, the coach of the Raiders, really wants his team to play hard because I'm sure he wants this job. And he might be auditioning as well, but I see no motivation. Not only do I not see motivation, I don't even see any props in this game. So this will just be a quick pass for me. We'll move on to the Eagles at the Giants. Did you find anything that you like in this game? I know the Giants plus the points is a very, very sexy pick, and I'm always terrified whenever I hear like, oh, you know who the public is all over? The underdog. It's like, oh, geez. Oh, no. Like, just feels like a recipe for disaster.
That old expression, Andy, public dogs have fleas. If you hear a lot of people on a dog, it's probably not usually a good one. I hate to not just give out individual player props here, but I actually like over 23.5 team total for the Birds here. I think the Eagles have a great one. You look back, we talked about it the last time on Christmas. 25-23. That was the game everyone was talking about for so long. And this Philadelphia team hasn't looked good on the road. You know, they haven't won on the road since before Thanksgiving. I like some of the quotes I'm seeing from this team right now. I mean, people can rip on Sirianni all they want. I like the motivation going into this week. I see some of these quotes here from the wideouts. They want to run it up. And this Giants team, to me, when they've had, that was a good game for them against the Eagles, but let's look at their schedule a little bit. When they've faced elite of elite teams, they've given up so many yards. They've given up so many catches to number 1 wide receivers. This is going to be a matchup that, number one, the Eagles are just, I think, eager to blow a team out. They have had a pretty rough schedule over the past 5 to 6 weeks. I think this is a game that they get up and over their team total and continue to run things up. And you can talk about playoff position, playoff matchup. I did mention Darius Slayton. Maybe bet on him for his incentives, but I just like the team total here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Coach Brian Dable, his team will play hard until the final whistle, despite missing the playoffs. He goes, they've had good competitive stamina. It's gone down to the wire these last few games. We haven't gotten results we wanted. It keeps happening to us year by year. Like, what do those quotes even tell you? Like, I don't think that they might tell us they're going to play down to the final whistle, but I just think we're seeing one motivated team against a team that already upset the Eagles just like a few weeks back. I think this is a great matchup for the Eagles, and I think that the fact that they lost to this team not long ago helps out my team total that much more. So Eagles team total up and over 23.5.
Producer Dan is just like rolling his eyes right now. He's like, I love Philadelphia fans because like Philadelphia fans, they love their team and they're undefeated and they drop a couple games and then they're just like 100% out. But then if they make a nice little run in the playoffs, they're 100% in, and they just they just gloss over that they were out for like 6 weeks on their own team. I love Philly fans. They're the best. We're out.
That applies
We're
for the
in.
76ers too. That definitely applies
That's
for
what I
the
said. Philly
76ers.
fans,
Yeah.
the Flyers,
Yeah.
the 76ers, the Phillies, just like all of them. God love Philly fans.
To be fair, I said they
Panthers.
sucked since week 3. Let's clarify that. I thought they
we have to
sucked
give
since
Dan
week
credit.
3.
All right, Dan, I don't know if they can hear you or not, or we can just hear you, but
They can.
What do you think about this week?
I like your bet.
Am I far
That's
off?
all I'll say.
Okay.
I like your bet.
I will give Dan credit. He has nailed his bets on the Eagles this season. Like week in and week out. Like knowing your home team and having a good read on it might be the best advantage you might have as a bettor. But Dan has done a fantastic job with that one. So shout out to salty Philly fan, producer Dan, on that one. So I'm with you. Seahawks and Cardinals. Andrew, there's just one that sticks out, and I don't need any more than one bet in this game, and that's going right back to DK Metcalf over his longest reception. It's 24.5 this week. I don't care if it's moved up a yard. Last week it was 23.5. He's gone over this in 5 straight games, 12 out of 15 games that he's played this year, and he's gone over in 6 straight games on the road. This is a guy that you just throw the ball up for grabs. He's going to get one every game, and this is a Cardinals defense that is horrific. They're terrible against the run. I think it's going to open up you just need one good look from DK Metcalf. This is just a rinse and repeat. I wish Seahawks were going to be playing for the next 20 weeks because I could play this every single week. But I don't need to overthink this game. DK Metcalf over his longest reception. I'll take it once again. Chiefs and Chargers. We mentioned Chris Jones. That's money-wise, that might be the biggest incentive I see. So keep your eyes open on that one. What else did you find with props in this game?
Yeah, and then there's obviously the Austin Eckler one here, 110 receiving or rushing yards to net. Yeah, I think it's like $150,000, something like that. And this is one of those ones where I don't think he's going to get 100 and some yards, but I think that he's worth looking at here against this Chiefs team. I mean, when the Chargers have struggled over the past few weeks and they've had the backup quarterback in, they obviously haven't looked the same since Herbert went out. But the running game is going to be huge for him, and I think you mentioned it yourself. Not even just talking about contracts and stuff like that, but more so just talking about Eckler as a whole. When this team has struggled, and it's definitely been a disappointing season for the Chargers, when he's played well and gotten the touches, they've performed at a higher level. I mean, if anybody, forget about Jamar Chase. He should be the guy saying 7-11, I'm always open, because when he gets the ball, he plays a lot better. This team actually has success. So I'd look towards him, strictly towards the ground game. Don't really expect much there in the receiving department. And then for this Kansas City team, I kind of want to look towards the ground game as well. Their offense has been a bit dry. Their passing offense. Look at Mahomes. He's been crying after every game, complaining about flags. I mean, this is the thing. When you look at a team, it kind of the Kansas City Chiefs right now kind of remind me of the Warriors in the NBA. It's like two teams that are still good, but they were great and have won multiple times. And now that they're kind of going on a downfall, everything is everybody else's fault but their own. And I feel like just this Kansas City team's really been embracing the run game. For receivers, I'd look more towards receptions than I would look towards yards this week. I kind of like the under overall in the full game here for this one. But I think the best bet is the Austin Eckler rushing yard prop here.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had written Austin Eckler off for dead a few weeks ago, and then the Chargers and all their wisdom were like, now that we're eliminated from the playoffs, let's use him. Let's give him a bunch of touches towards the end of the year. So whatever. Not a big fan of the Chargers this year. Rams at 49ers. All I know about this game is that Brock Purdy is not going to play, I believe is what they said. And so there are no props on this one. I don't even have any guesses on this game. I don't know what the lineups are going to be in this one. So unfortunately, it's a pass for me in this one. One more time, guys, hit the like button and leave us a comment. Tell us your best bet that is up right now. And if you want to check out my page at WagerTalk.com, we've got an NFL pack that is up. It's got a 5% and a 4% play. We're 39-21 in our last 60 plays in the NFL. So we're seeing the sport really, really well. And if you're interested in a year's pass, you can use the promo code LANG50. That's LANG50. Gets $1,000 off a year's pass. We were plus 88 units last year, and we're looking forward to an even bigger and better 2024. So if you want to jump on board, no better time as it's half price. You can take advantage of all of those plays for all sports, including this weekend's 5% and 4% NFL pack. Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com. Andrew, one more time, tell everyone where we can find you at, and let's go over the Cowboys and the Commanders.
Short link, wt.buzz/am, wagertalk.com, prop pack that gets updated multiple times throughout the weekend. Not just one time sent out. Of course, you get that prop package. You get everything that comes with it. One team total and one side play sticking out to me in the NFL. And as far as this game is concerned, I want to look at Jake Ferguson over 37.5. You know, I think you look at the point spread in this one, it's pretty big. You've got a team with the Commanders that have been dead for weeks. Everybody knows the coaching staff's going to be gone. You have no idea what the quarterback situation is going to be like next year. You don't know who's going to be here with this team, but do you want to lay the points? You know, it's obviously an important game for the Cowboys. They want to win this one. All kinds of quotes out of the locker room saying, hey, honestly, we wish we didn't even have to be in this spot. We shouldn't be in this spot. We should have won it before. I like what Jake Ferguson has added to this offense. You look at some guys like CeeDee Lamb. His number is like 93.5, 94, depending on where you're shopping around. That's high because in a blowout game, he could have an excellent first half. And if they're up multiple touchdowns, you know, you might end up getting a bad beat and losing that one by 10 or 20 yards, even if he has a great first half. I think the Jake Ferguson one is good at 37.5. He's getting steady targets, 4+ in his last couple games here. So I like Jake Ferguson. He's bringing a lot to this team. He's been a favorite target. And for me, he's shocked me with his yards after catch. Like at first, when I started watching him, he was kind of a guy that would just catch the ball and then he'd just get tackled. But now for a guy that only has a 37.5 yard number, you know, if he catches a 5 or 6 yard ball and turns that into 12 or 13 yards, you know, you're a decent way there. You only need a few more catches. So he's the one guy I've circled in this one. And, if you're wondering if I have any Commanders props, the answer is no. I'll stick with just that one guy.
Sam Howell, throw an interception. Nice parlay piece. He's going to lob a couple to the wrong team. We'll close out with the Bills at the Dolphins. You know, everybody and their mother seems to be on the Buffalo Bills, and that always worries me. But I'm trying to find the argument for the Dolphins, and I can't quite get there. Mostert is banged up. Waddle is banged up. Xavier Howard is banged up. Those guys did not practice yesterday. Bradley Chubb is out for the rest of the season and probably part of next season because they decided to play him in a 30-point game last week. And then I'm going to fade Tyreek Hill, Andrew. It's 91.5 receiving. He only had 58 yards last game against Buffalo, but the biggest thing is the off-the-field distraction. I feel terrible for what happened to him. If you didn't know, he had a big house fire. Turns out it was a child with a lighter that accidentally started a fire. Huge damage to his house. And just think he's distracted. This is a game the Dolphins don't need to win, and this is a game the Bills do need to win. They're going to know exactly what their scenarios are. But basically, if they win, they get the number 2 seed. So I think Buffalo takes care of business. And I love that this game's at night. It's going to be a little bit cooler, so we don't have the Buffalo Bills, playing in 90-degree weather, in the middle of the day down in Florida, which, you always worry about, exhaustion. But this is Bills all day. I can't figure out what Bills prop I like. It might be James Cook rush attempts when it comes out. It might be his rushing yards. But I think I'm just going to fade the Miami Dolphins and Tyreek Hill and just say take the under. Too many distractions this week. This could be a game that just gets out of control. And if you're Miami, you might pull off the dogs and just say, why are we playing any of these guys? So I'll take Tyreek under because I think Buffalo locks him down. It's kind of the only weapon they got at this point. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for us on Prop It Up. Fascinating week of games But don't worry, we're going to be back next week when the playoffs get started, and it is locked and loaded here on Prop It Up. Can't wait for all these playoffs when we get the full teams, the full starters, full motivated teams. Should get some really, really good lines. Hit the like button, leave us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Good luck on all your plays this weekend, and we will see you next week on Prop It Up.